myself, I'm not really a religious guy, but I'll talk a lot about that shit. So this vulnerability is a huge thing that we need to look for. And what that means is not necessarily telling a story which is bad about yourself, not telling a story which is some gut-wrenching thing, but it's telling a story which is honest about who you are. Honest about who you are, that even though you may be afraid of what other people think of you, even though you might be afraid of what your girlfriend might say, even though you know that the best thing in the world is that you might have to stop something, switch a job, end a relationship, start a relationship, but that fear of what the outcome might be for you cannot define you, and that you have to have that honesty in order to connect to somebody. All right, how this all relates back to the sexual life is that, again, we want to define ourselves in an order where our actions towards sex, which could even be approaching a girl, it could be doing all sorts of crazy sexual experiments, could be having threesomes, it could be having whatever orgies, it could be doing things that you've always wished you'd done. But if you're not doing them, they always, exaggerate in your mind. Like, for instance, people will want to go to a strip club with me and they'll be, man, I want to always fuck strippers. I always want to fuck strippers. One of the best things I ever heard, one of my favorite speeches that I've ever seen is Hypnotica, when he spoke, and the guy manages a strip club, right? And, or works in one, or I don't know what the whole situation is, but the guy knows what's up. And somebody was saying, what about strippers? he goes, I've had some exceptional relationships with dancers, but why would you want that? Why are you wanting that? Think about that. What do you know about your sexuality, that you would actually want that? Because from my experience, there can be a whole lot of baggage that comes with it. Not saying that that's always the case, but why do you want that? Because you're in love with a fantasy. It's because you're in love with that thing that's keeping you from that experience, That vulnerability of saying what you really want and why you want those things isn't being exercised. And that fear of desiring that fantasy is dominating your perspective, your decisions, and all that sort of stuff. So what I wanted to do, or in living the sexual life, you need to have your actions be humbled by your seduction. And what seduction is seduction is a process. Seduction is something that's felt. Seduction, which is an interaction with a dance. In fact, a long time ago, there's this guy that goes by the name Shaft, and he's from Dallas, and he's part of the Dallas scene. And he said the difference between everybody out there, because he would come to different workshops and that we'd be doing, and he'd see other instructors. He said the difference of what's happening in Dallas, especially kind of from that Captain Jack type route, is that it's a dance with people. It's an interaction, and it happens quite quick, and it's great, but it's enjoyable. And even if we have sex or not, it doesn't really matter so much. What matters so much is the actual interaction with that person, this seduction part. And when you start to get this down, and again, it doesn't mean that you're having acts of sex. It means that you're enjoying interacting with people. It's an exchange, by definition. Then our sexuality starts to be defined. And what happens in our culture, man, how we see sexuality, is we see it purely as, porn or shame. And it's usually a combination of both of these. Dude, seriously, if you asked me a couple years ago, what is fucking sexuality? I'll talk to my buddies and we'll have guy talk, and I still have guy talk with my buddies. And it still can go something like this, but I know this isn't the only definition. It's like, oh man, I met this chick and dude, I fucking dominated her. I totally enslaved her, defiled her, made her blah, 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 blah. And I made her say this and that, and these things were happening, and then I got her friend, or then there's these pickup guys who sell books on how to have sex and seduce, challenging me on seducing women, so I'll get the chick to suck my dick in front of them and then say, suck all their dicks so they can't get it up, and I laugh at them. But I won't say who, but that to me was man, that's my sexuality. That's it. And it's all this shit-talking stuff, which is fun to have, and that's not wrong, but it's wrong when that's the only thing, right? So we see all this fucking crazy stuff, which is pornography. We hear all these stories, and man, that's what's getting us to click the button, stay in front of the computer, watch whatever screen, and blah, 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 blah. And that's defining our sexuality. But then we secretly go home and we we're not having sex, or we're not interacting with women, or we're talking to women. In fact, this was a rule. I came out of like a really sexually aggressive camp. It was your first 50 lays don't count. You hook up with anybody. You know what? You get really good at learning how to escalate. You get really good at logistics. You get really good at the technical aspects of game. But you don't learn how to be yourself, and you don't learn how to exchange with somebody. And